Alright, third hour, you finished the screencast on 7.6, and now it's time to make sure we're fully covered and ready for the test, either before we take it or before the next class. That way we'll be ready for our test when it does happen. If you don't have your name on your review, if you don't have the hour, if you don't have the date, get that on there. If you need a review, the sub should have them. I apologize again for not being able to be there, but we do have district wrestling, and we may have one day next week where I'll be gone again, but hopefully after that we'll be back to normal and I'll be in the classroom full time and won't miss any more days. So let's jump into the review. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and guide you in some hints and some clues to the answers on most of these. Because it is a review, you should know it, and I will fully go over some other ones. So let's go ahead and graph the first one. In the first equation, y equals negative 3x plus 1. The plus 1, because this is in function form, tells me that's my y-intercept. The negative 3, because it's a whole number, is over 1, and that tells me my rise and my run. I go down 3, right 1. Down 3, right 1. I could also move the opposite direction, up 3, left 1, and you see it creates the same slope for that line. Let's graph the second one at the same time, and then we'll draw our lines. I will change the colors so that we can more clearly see which line is the other line. Notice this y-intercept goes slightly off the graph, but we can approximate it. Looks like negative 7 would be about right there. When we don't see the number in front of the x, it is a 1, and because that's a whole number, it's also over 1. So the rise is 1 over 1. 1 over 1. 1 over 1. Up 1, right 1. Up 1, right 1. And that one just barely catches a corner of that fourth quadrant, and that will be that graph. So in both these situations, our lines are equal to, meaning they must be solid, and they extend on forever and ever and ever with lines on both sides. So our black line looks like it's ready to graph first. That will extend all the way through, and there's the black line. The blue line, passing just barely through the corner of this, goes right there, and we're ready to label our solution point. I'm going to circle that on my graph. You don't have to on yours, but what you do need to do is you need to record the x for that, which is 2, and the y for that, which is negative 5, to identify its solution. If we jump over to number 2, you should be able to figure out that this one has a negative x and has a positive y if you want to check the answer you came up with. Not going to waste time to graph there, but there's a good hint toward its answer. Number 3. We have a problem in one of our equations. If we're going to graph, we need them in function form. Notice the second one is in function form. This first equation is not in function form. How do I solve for function form? It must be in y equals. So because this is positive x over here, I need it moved to the other side. If it moves to the other side, it becomes negative x. So let me rewrite this equation so it looks like function form. We're going to ignore the old, and it's going to be y equals negative x plus 3. In this form, we have a y-intercept, we have a slope, and hopefully you can identify, here's a big hint, that the slope here is the same thing as the slope here. And in lesson 7.5 we talked about special solutions. If they have the same slope, it gives something away for you. So that's your hint on number 3. Going ahead and scrolling down, we need to go over 4, 5, and 6. Some will give hints, some will actually go through. So, this one right here, your hint is, your answer is in quadrant number 1. If you don't know quadrant 1, that goes all the way back to first quarter. Hopefully you can identify quadrant 1. That's where your solution is located. If you look at number 5 is not in function form. In order to get there, you'll need to move this term over. For number 5, your answer should be located in quadrant number 4. So that's your hint on 5. Okay, number 6 is a little bit more difficult because it has some extra steps to it. Because we need to solve for y in order to graph, this one's going to change and this one's going to change. If I'm going to change either of them, I subtract the term attached to x and I'll divide the term that's attached to y. The end result of this one, if you solved it and changed it to function form, is y equals negative x plus 2. If you solve the top equation over, you have y equals 3 over 2x plus 3. And you should be able to graph those. I'll give you a hint here for your solution. You should have a fraction right here that is a negative fraction. And I'll put numerator over denominator so that you know it's a fraction. And then for your y term, okay, you're going to have a mixed number. So the way I'll label your mixed number is you have your whole value with your numerator and denominator. Notice I didn't put a negative sign on this because it's positive. If you have a negative x and a positive y, that locates the answer in this quadrant right here somewhere. And this quadrant is quadrant 2. So that's your help on number 6. Moving down to 7. Solve the linear system using substitution. To clearly identify the substitution, I'll put the variable I know. Because y is all by itself, I know it is equal to something. That something is 2x minus 7. So all of this substitutes for y. And when we set this up, we'll have x plus 2 times my new y, which instead of being y is going to be 2x minus 7 equals 1. We solve this equation by distribute, regroup, eliminate, add, subtract, multiply, divide. If you distribute, you'll have 4x minus 14. I'm going to go ahead and combine 4x with 1x to make 5x minus 14 to equal 1. Next step to solving, add the 14, and to save some space, I'll just say that I'm adding 14 over to make that 15. And now to divide, I'll have x to equal 15 divided by 5 makes 3. Therefore, x is 3. At this stage, my one answer cruises on up into the first equation so that I can then solve for y. So let me get the second answer using the color red. Y equals 2 times 3 minus 7. Get that multiplication sign in there better. Y equals 6 minus 7. And y in the end is negative 1. You still must transfer these as a solution to have 3, negative 1. Here's your hints for the remaining problems. You know what x is. So all of that substitutes for x. In this one, you will get a decimal answer. Okay? If we move over to number 9, we don't know a variable right off hand. We don't have one solved for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add y over, and if I add y over, I now know that x equals 4 plus y. Therefore, all of this substitutes back in the equation for x. Let me help you with that. 4 plus y plus 4y equals 9. Y plus 4y is going to be 5y. We'll rewrite the rest. When you subtract 4 to the other side, you'll have 5y equals 5. And when you divide by 5, you'll have y equals 1. This is not the final solution. You need to take this answer, put it back in the original equation, either original equation, and solve for your x variable. Alright? Scrolling on.